On the humid morning of June 20th, 2001, in suburban Clear Lake, Texas, Andrea Yates calmly dialed 911. In a chillingly flat voice, she said, "I just need a police officer." When pressed about urgency, she paused, then stated plainly, "I just killed my children." Andrea Pia Kennedy Yates, 37, a former nurse at MD Anderson Cancer Center and a devout Christian, was mother to 5 children, ages 6 months to 7 years. Her children, Noah, 7, John, 5, Paul, 3, Luke, 2, and baby Mary, were found lifeless in the bathtub, each drowned. The nation reeled, not at a case of simple violence, but at tragedy born of untreated mental illness. Andrea had battled postpartum depression and psychosis, conditions she'd been hospitalized for. She had been medicated, warned against another pregnancy, and despite that, she became ill again. Medication was tapered, care was inconsistent, and her delusions deepened. She believed she was saving her children from hell, from spiritual damnation. Her act was not one of malice, but of delusion. A horrific final mercy, she would say later. Andrea was born July 2, 1964, in Houston, the youngest of 5, a valedictorian, swimmer, and nurse. In April 1993, she married Russell "Rusty" Yates, a NASA engineer. They embraced a devout faith and welcomed 5 children over 7 years. This is the story of a mother's mind unraveling behind closed doors. A story of faith and fragility, of illness ignored, and a system left silent. Andrea and Rusty Yates were devout Christians who believed in simple living, spiritual discipline, and complete devotion to family. Andrea left her career in nursing to homeschool their children. Over the next 7 years, they welcomed 5. Noah in 1994, then John, Paul, Luke, and finally Mary, born in November 2000. Neighbors described them as the picture of suburban peace. Andrea was quiet, polite, nurturing. She homeschooled the kids in phonics, taught Bible verses by candlelight, and baked with them in the kitchen. But behind that warm image, something was unraveling. In mid-1999, shortly after Luke's birth, Andrea experienced her first major mental health crisis. She became withdrawn, stopped speaking, and attempted suicide twice, once by overdose and once by holding a knife to her own throat. She was hospitalized and diagnosed with severe postpartum depression with psychotic features. Doctors prescribed the antipsychotic Haldol, and for a time, Andrea showed signs of recovery. But the progress was short-lived. She was warned explicitly by psychiatrists another pregnancy could be catastrophic. Still, in late 1999, she conceived their 5th child. By early 2001, her condition had worsened dramatically. After the death of her father in March, Andrea fell into a catatonic state. She stopped feeding Mary, mutilated herself, and again required psychiatric hospitalization. Yet care remained inconsistent. Her medications were adjusted frequently, and in June, less than 3 weeks before the tragedy, they were reduced again. Meanwhile, she was still responsible for 5 young children, often with no adult supervision. This was a family under strain, a mother slipping into psychosis, a father hoping prayer and structure would be enough, a household steeped in faith, but increasingly isolated from outside help. To neighbors, they were quiet, orderly, even admirable. But inside that home, something unspeakable was building, and soon the silence would break. Andrea Yates was hospitalized multiple times between 1999 and 2001. Her diagnoses were severe: postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis, an illness affecting about 1 to 2 women in every 1,000 births, and one often misunderstood or overlooked. She responded well to Haldol, a powerful antipsychotic, but the improvement was temporary. Within weeks of each discharge, doctors reduced or discontinued the medication. Her symptoms always returned. Her delusions deepened. She believed Satan was watching her through hidden cameras, that television messages were coded warnings, and that her children were in eternal danger. To Andrea, it was a spiritual war, one she was destined to lose. After her arrest, jail psychiatrist Dr. Melissa Ferguson testified that Andrea said she was marked by Satan, and at times believed she was Satan. She claimed her children were not righteous, and would burn in hell if not saved through death. Neighbors recalled seeing her pacing, silent and hollow-eyed. A woman spiraling, but never stopped. Every relapse, every suicide attempt, every tapered dose. The signs were there, not in isolation, but in escalating succession. And still, no one truly heard her. June 20th, 2001. A typical morning in the Yates home became a moment seared into national memory. Rusty Yates left for work around 9 a.m., believing Andrea was stable enough to be alone with the children. Just 1 hour later, all 5 were gone. One by one, Andrea carried them into the bathroom. She started with Paul, Luke, and John, drowning them quietly and laying their bodies on the bed. Then baby Mary. And finally Noah, her eldest, who ran when he saw his sister's body. She chased him, overpowered him, and held him down beneath the water. Minutes later, she made a 911 call. Her voice was devoid of emotion. "I just need a police officer." When asked if it was a disturbance or illness, she replied, "Yes, I'm ill." When officers arrived, Andrea opened the door, soaking wet, eyes vacant. Without resistance, she said, "I just killed my kids." Inside, they found 4 children laid on a bed, covered gently. Noah was still floating in the bathtub. It took under an hour. By the time her mother-in-law arrived to relieve her, it was already done. Inside the home, officers found 4 children carefully laid out on a bed, lifeless, wrapped in sheets. In the bathtub, face down in the water, was 7-year-old Noah. The entire tragedy unfolded in less than an hour when Rusty Yates was still at work, and Andrea's mother-in-law was just minutes from arriving. In under 60 minutes, a mother's terror, shaped by delusion, broke through the silence. What followed would force America to confront how we treat mental illness, motherhood, and accountability. Andrea Yates was charged with capital murder. In March 2002, a Houston jury found her guilty and sentenced her to life in prison. The defense argued she was psychotic, incapable of distinguishing right from wrong, but Texas law, under the Mnaton rule, demanded clear proof of legal insanity. In 2005, her conviction was overturned. The appeals court found that one of the state's expert witnesses falsely testified that an episode of Law and Order mirrored Yates's crime, an episode that never existed. That detail, a single falsehood, changed everything. At her retrial in July 2006, Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The jury accepted what her doctors had long said. She was suffering from acute postpartum psychosis, so severe she believed she was saving her children's souls. Instead of returning to prison, Andrea was sent to North Texas State Hospital. In 2007, she was transferred to Kerrville State Hospital, where she remains under civil commitment to this day. Each year, her attorney, George Parnham, visits the children's graves, leaving flowers and remembering what could not be saved. He also created the Yates Children Memorial Fund, an effort to raise awareness of postpartum psychosis and prevent similar tragedies. Experts, jurors, and the American Psychiatric Association now cite the Yates case as a watershed moment, one that forced society to reckon with the terrifying reality of maternal mental illness. The case of Andrea Yates shifted public perception, revealing that postpartum psychosis is not just rare, but dangerously misunderstood, a condition that can be lethal and yet still lacks the legal nuance and medical support it demands. Today, Andrea Yates remains at Kerrville State Hospital under civil commitment. She is unmarried. She has declined opportunities for release. Those who know her say she chooses to stay out of guilt, out of sorrow, and perhaps out of a belief that she no longer belongs anywhere else. Rusty Yates has remarried and started a new life, but he has remained in contact with Andrea, visiting occasionally, maintaining a fragile connection through decades of grief. Andrea does not visit her children's graves. That act belongs to her former attorney, George Parnham, who quietly returns each year to lay flowers, one for each child. He also founded the Yates Children Memorial Fund, dedicated to spreading awareness of postpartum psychosis and supporting families in crisis before it's too late. The fund stands as both a memorial and a warning, a reminder that maternal mental illness is not a weakness, but a medical emergency. Andrea lives a life few see. She makes crafts. She prays. She receives letters from strangers, messages of forgiveness, confusion, empathy. She rarely responds, but she keeps them. In the silence of Kerrville, a mother lives with memory. In the quiet of Forest Park East Cemetery, 5 children rest side by side. And in between, the world still grapples with faith, madness, responsibility, and the fragile line between protection and destruction.